Games don't need to be easy, and I don't mean that every game should be like Dark Souls. I don't want every game to be miserable, every boss to have 3 faces, or the tutorial boss to slap me around and humble me in front of my family, because obviously not every game needs to be painful. Sometimes I just wanna play Stardew Valley, plant some potatoes, pet my dog, talk to the villagers, and not have Melania folding me like laundry. That is fine, but at the same time, not every game needs to bend over backwards to make sure I never feel uncomfortable. Alright, go grab some coffee and get comfortable because I need to rant about difficulty in games for a bit. I feel like we have reached this weird point where games are expected to constantly apologize for asking the player to learn anything. The second there's friction, people just jump straight to, oh, that's bad design. But friction does not mean that the game is broken. Maybe you just haven't learned it yet, and there's a difference. Game can let you get lost for a bit, it can let a boss beat you a few times, it can leave a system alone for more than 12 seconds without pausing the entire universe to explain it with a glowing fucking arrow and a motivational podcast in your ear. That is not the game failing, that is the game trusting you and trusting that you actually have a brain. And I think that matters. Because difficulty is not just some random wall developers put in front of you because they hate having fun. Difficulty can be part of what the game is saying. In a game like Elden Ring, the danger is the atmosphere. You're not supposed to walk into every room feeling like the chosen one, while the game gently holds your hand and tells you you're doing amazing. You are supposed to feel like the world does not care about you. That is the whole vibe. You walk into a cave, see some little coupling creatures in the corner and think, okay, I can take these guys, and then 3 seconds later you're dead, emotionally damaged, and the goblins took your wallet and your girl. That is Elden Ring, and obviously that can feel like shit, but it also makes the world feel dangerous. I mean, if every enemy politely waited for you to be ready, or every boss folded after 2 attempts, if every area was perfectly safe and balanced around making sure you never felt lost or stupid, the whole thing would lose its identity. I guess it would still have the castles and dragons, and you would keep your wallet, but it would not feel the same. The struggle is part of the experience. That is true for a lot of games. Sekiro would not hit the same if you would just panic parry your way through every boss fight with vibes. That game looks you directly into your eyes and says, no, learn the parry. And then, after you do, something clicks. Suddenly, the same fight that felt impossible starts feeling like a rhythm game. That feeling is the point. The game did not get easier, you got better. And that is such a specific kind of satisfaction that games are really good at creating. Because when a game is too easy all the time, winning can start to feel fake and boring. Obviously, not every game needs to test your reflexes, your soul, or your fucking iron will. A cozy game does not need to beat me with a chair repeatedly. A story game does not need to check if I can 1v1 faker before I'm allowed to care about the characters. And I don't need Minecraft to spawn Ender Dragon because I had the audacity to build a little dirt house. But when the game is built around danger, mastery, survival, removing the challenge can remove the thing that made it work. It's kinda like watching a horror movie with all the lights on, the volume turned down, and the monster replaced by a guy who occasionally says, "Boo!" from a distance. Sure, more people could technically watch it, but it would not be the same experience. And this is where the conversation always gets so annoying, because the moment you say not every game needs to be for everyone, some people hear, "Oh, so you hate accessibility?" No, that is not what I'm saying. Accessibility is good. Better subtitles, colorblind modes, remappable controls, whatever. More people being able to physically play games is obviously a good thing. But accessibility and difficulty are not the same conversation. Making a game readable is not the same as making it easy. Letting somebody remap controls is not the same as deleting the challenge, and giving players better tools is not the same as sanding down every sharp edge until every game feels like the same soft, flavorless open world soup that Ubisoft spits out every year. Games need edges, they need personality, they need moments where they're allowed to push back. Because that pushback is where a lot of memorable stuff happens. Nobody remembers a boss because it politely fell over and gave them a trophy for showing up. People remember the fight that made them lean forward. the one where their heart was beating way too fast, or they had one hit left, no healing left, and their hands were sweaty, and somehow they still pulled it off. That is the good stuff. That is the story you tell somebody later. Not because losing for 2 hours is fun, getting destroyed by the same boss over and over again is not relaxing wellness activity. Nobody's sitting there like, wow, this is doing wonders for my inner peace. But when you finally beat it, it feels earned. And that word matters. Earned. Because games can throw rewards at you constantly. Loot, XP, battle pass progress, whatever. But the best reward is usually just realizing that the impossible thing is not impossible anymore. The fight starts making sense, the panic fades, and for one very beautiful second you stop actually blaming the controller. The game did not change, you did. And I think games lose something when every rough edge gets treated like a mistake. A game should be allowed to be demanding, it should be allowed to be niche. It should be allowed to have a specific experience and say, this is what this is, take it or leave it. Because not every game has to protect my ego or make me feel good every second. Some games should be allowed to push back, some games should be allowed to be uncomfortable, and some games should be allowed to be hard. Sometimes it is okay for a game to look at you dead in the eyes and say, you're bad at this. Subscribe and I love you. Bye.